Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mark Goldhart. Mark, how are you, sir?
I'm wonderful.
We're doing a podcast today a little different, and we are sitting so close to each other.
It's a little uncomfortable.
It is a little uncomfortable. When I was talking to the camera this way, it wasn't. And then when I turned to you this way,
Yeah.
it reminds me of...
I don't sit this close to anyone but like my kids and wife.
Yeah, I'm probably the same way. But it reminds me of Seinfeld. Do you ever watch Seinfeld episodes?
I never was into Seinfeld. I'll just be honest with everyone.
That's fine. Well, I am like, when I work out, I put Seinfeld on or something. I just put like a mindless show on that I don't have to be looking at, but I can just be listening to. And this morning I was just watching the episode where Elaine is dating a guy who's a close talker. And so he'll talk to people like this close. And it's just like, that's what the whole episode is about. And eventually I think what she ends up breaking up with him for. And that's how I feel right now. It's like you and me are close talkers.
It is. Yeah.
For those of you who are looking, you can tell. If you're listening, just imagine Mark and I are just
cozying,
elbow to
cozying
elbow.
up.
We might as well
6 inches apart.
Yeah, we might as well be snuggling right now.
Like family style in the front of a truck, you know?
Oh yeah. Family style in the front of the truck.
That's right.
The one-seater.
The one-seater.
The
one row.
Yeah.
The bench.
The bench, exactly. Well, listen, let's introduce our guests. I'm actually so excited to have our guest on today. Today we are we're blessed to have Preston Rutherford, one of the co-founders of Chubbies and one of the co-founders of Looper Turns, on the podcast with us. Preston, how are you, dude?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation, dig into some stuff with you. Maybe there'll be some hot takes. Who knows?
Oh yeah, we'll get some hot takes for sure. You know, whether it's like
steamy hot takes.
I mean, Mark gave a hot take just barely, which was, I'm not into Seinfeld. So I think that is even
totally
like somewhat of a hot take. Are you into Seinfeld?
Oddly enough, my wife's out of town on work. So after I put my 2 kids down, I had me time, and I spent 3 hours watching Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee and Jerry Before Seinfeld, which is one of his it's a Netflix comedy special, but it's far less popular. Anyways, yes, short answer.
Nice.
And I went deep last night.
That's awesome.
I'm glad you treated yourself then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man,
3-hour veg session.
So good.
That's so good.
My daughter kept getting up and saying, "Dad, you're being too loud," because I was just laughing constantly. So,
how old are your kids?
I have a 6-year-old daughter named Ryan, and a 1-year-old, just turned 1 last week.
Ah, congrats!
And his name is Rock. His name is Rock, which is kind of pretty cool. Last name's Rutherford, so we're going deep on the
Rock Rutherford.
alliteration.
That's a good name. Like that's like a
Rutherford has some prestige.
It's got some political prestige to it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a funny name. Yeah, Preston Rutherford. Growing up, everyone called me Preston Rutherford III because it was just such a ridiculous name.
Dude, I've got a 5-year-old girl, so I understand that. I've got 3 kids,
Sweet.
But I got a 5-year-old girl, so I can relate. She's almost 6, and they're just like, awesome. That's like my funnest age right now. I think it's so fun.
Yeah,
it's a blast.
Great.
One's pretty cool too because they're sleeping usually. You know, a little better by then.
Sleeping, starting to figure out. It's like from Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands, but starting to figure out what to do with their hands. So like, I'll play some music on the Sonos or whatever in the mornings, and he's now getting into it and learning to clap, and it's just so cute when he's just kind of like sitting there clapping and starting to do stuff like that. I just love it.
I love kid life, dude. It's so fun.
Yeah, what's harder, being a dad or when you were playing rugby?
Being a dad, especially trying to get my daughter to eat dinner is just, I try every strategy. I'm on YouTube trying to figure this stuff out. And well, she'll eat it, but she'll wait 2 minutes before it's bedtime to say, "I'm hungry." Yeah. And I'm just like, man, how do I not micromanage this, but get her to be in a place where she's like, okay, I gotta eat. It's dinner time.
And for our listeners, we made that connection. Is I played rugby in college, in high school. And Preston also played some rugby in college over at Stanford.
And coincidentally, I have never played rugby.
You've never played rugby
ever.
You're the odd man out.
I am the odd man out. I enjoy sports. I got a scholarship.
Sports are great.
I got a scholarship to play tennis in college, and then they killed the program when I was going to go.
No way.
It was the only college that gave me an offer, and
then they killed it.
And then they kept the women's team alive, but they did not keep the men's team alive.
But I will tell you this: I have as many scars from being a father as I do from rugby at this point.
Like emotional scars,
physical scars. From a scratch, dude. I got a scratch
and one of the
scar.
Stories,
one of my kids bit a chunk out of my arm when he was like 1.5, and I have a giant scar from it.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, my kids are just savages, man.
Yeah, wow,
that's gnarly.
Well,
that's awesome. They're warriors.
They really are, man. They really, really are. Well, yeah, kid life is great. I feel like we always go on kid tangents
kids.
anytime
kids
somebody
are
has.
great.
Yeah, we love our family, so that's awesome. Well, dude, tell us a little bit about for the listeners. Let's just get a little origin story here. Just let's briefly talk about Chubbies, how that started. I'm sure for those of you who if you don't know who Chubbies is, that's wild. But Chubbies is Chubbies is a lifestyle apparel brand, essentially, right? You might have a better way to say that, and you probably do.
Nope.
Especially
that's what it is.
Special where you guys really got your feet wet, no pun intended, was in swimwear, right?
Yeah, nicely put.
Look at that. All right, sorry, go ahead. Talk to us.
No, that was perfect. Yeah, Chubbies. Find us at Chubbies or chubbiesshorts.com. We are the purveyors of all of your weekend apparel needs. No, but you mentioned lifestyle apparel brand, aka Tiny Shorts salesman on the internet is one of the other things that we are. But yeah, I mean, that's what Chubbies is. Started back in late 2011, and then just to fast forward to the end, great 9-figure exit in 2021. Part of a 10-figure IPO in 2021.
Congrats, by the way.
Part of Solo Brands. Thank you. Very fortunate, very blessed, very lucky. And it wasn't obvious that would be something that would happen at all. So again, very, very fortunate and lucky. And so then to rewind, yeah, I mean, this was all about 4 friends from college who felt like we wanted to start a business because we were no good at working for other people and really hated it, and thought that, man, let's try to create a business so that we didn't have to work for other people. And so it was more of that. It was also that's defensive. So from the offensive perspective, the opportunity to have freedom, the opportunity to create something that didn't exist, the opportunity to make the world better, solve some problem was also there. And none of us were, computer scientists or technical or anything like that, which is kind of what everyone at Stanford does.
I was going to say, coming from Stanford, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we were whatever, political science. I studied urban studies. I don't even know what that is. There were some smarter people that studied economics and math, and I think one of us does actually have a technical engineering degree. But anyways, the point is that we weren't going to start Instagram or Snapchat with which I can I use light profanity or
absolutely?
No?
Sure,
you can use whatever profanity you would wish to. As long as you don't care if it's public.
Well.
Yeah,
it's public. I will let you know, my kids listen to this podcast from time to time, so they will come to me and they'll be like, "Dad, you had somebody on your podcast that said the A word," and I'm like, "All right, I will. I will chat with them."
Do they acknowledge earmuffs? Can you say earmuffs and they will?
You can say go ahead and say say earmuffs and then say it.
Okay.
We'll see.
Got it. Okay, I digress. So to resume, earmuffs, but I shit you not, they the guy who started Instagram and the guy who started Snapchat basically lived right across the street from each other at Stanford, but then also were like effectively right down the street from where we live. So it was like, so that's like what you do when you start a company. And it's like, well, I can't do that. I mean, that's like not in the cards for me. So it was very much like, well, what can we do? One of the four of us actually knew how to make clothes. So that was sort of like the only thing any of us really knew how to do that could be useful in the world. So it kind of put us in that direction.
Now when you say
apparel.
one of the four knew how to make clothes, like literally sew?
Maybe. I mean, maybe Rainer knows how to sell. I mean, I assume he does, but no, he was like one of the rising stars in big company apparel brands.
Okay,
so he
cool.
kind of went through the whole,
so he understood like the
Gap
entire
management training
supply
program
chain and production process.
Yeah. Okay. And knew how to run a clothing business, knew about all of the stuff
Makes
that
sense.
I still don't really know much about, like merchandising and planning and buying and yes, supply chain, having gone to China or Vietnam or name your country where there's huge sort of like manufacturing businesses, and just understands that whole world. But maybe he sews. I mean, he is a Renaissance man. So so that kind of put us in that direction. And then two of us, Rainer and Kyle, had actually worked at Abercrombie in college. So there's the Stanford Mall, which is like this shishi mall. And so it was like, so this was like one of the perfect examples that sort of to us was like, okay, because one of the things that gets you started in a business is, right, that the status quo sucks. It sucks so much that you feel it viscerally and you're like, this shall not stand, right? This like cannot continue. And I can fix it. I have confidence and I know that I can fix it. So the Abercrombie example here, and the reason I bring it up is just because the vibe in 2011 was extremely different from where it is today.
Yep.
Today, like 2023, top performing stock beats out, like returns more than NVIDIA in 23. Massive resurgence. Back then, that CEO guy was there. The vibe was just like the worst, right? The shirtless dudes, kind of like holier than thou sort of thing. When you walk in, they're spraying the spray and they're playing this horrible like elevator / electronic music. Anyways, the vibe was the worst. So then we had this experience. There's like one of us who's kind of like guiding us toward apparel. Talk about rugby. In rugby, you wear shorter shorts, right?
Yeah, we do like short shorts in rugby.
Yeah. Two of the other guys played soccer at Stanford, so generally shorter shorts. Rainer, as I mentioned, he jumped around growing up, military family, but spent a lot of time in the South, where generally shorts are shorter. So that you bring all these things together. The other thing I would add, right, is that at the time, this was when Shopify was like just becoming a thing. It's so crazy to think about now, but not too long before we started the business, it would have cost, I don't know, round numbers, like $1 million and 6 months to just get a shopping cart online where you could,
it's so crazy
post
to think
products,
about.
show a collection page, and facilitate transactions and pass data to a WMS or warehouse management system. Like that was crazy. So there was a massive like structural tailwind as well that just kind of like dramatically reduced the barrier to entry to just sell something online. And then the obvious of social media becoming a thing, but again, less obvious, 12, 13 years ago. So anyways, that was the, cacophony, the stew, if you will, that kind of came together to make it sort of seem like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to try to make it fun because that's sort of like what we like, we're not going to be serious because that was the vibe at the time in men's fashion, right? I mean, if you remember 2011, you had like the Ed Hardys of the world, like the style of just like this weird vibe of like, and again, I'm getting like super product focused, but like massively long cargo shorts, and these like really tight shirts and all this stuff emblazoned on it. And it was very much, in our opinion, a vibe of like this like standoffish, take yourself seriously, too cool for you. And so we were like, that sucks. That's just like, that shouldn't exist. So let's be the opposite of that.
Can I pause for a second? I just want to say, I want to call something out just because I think this is a cool learning lesson in your, like, this origin story here. And you had said something like, you know, the status quo started to suck. And this happens a lot of times where, you know, whether it's a status quo in fashion or what have you, those are the best times when you start to feel like, when you start to feel that the status quo sucks and you may not be the most eccentric person in the world, that's like some of the best times to start businesses, because you know that as a pretty ordinary individual, there are going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of other people who feel the exact same way as you, but nobody's willing to do anything about it. And so that's when there's such great opportunity. And so I love that, like, this is where the direction is going. Cause I identify with this crazy because I felt the same way in 2011, like that time, you know, like Abercrombie was huge for me in high school. I graduated in 2006, and I even started to get out of the Abercrombie, like where probably like my junior year I started. So in 2005, I actually started to get over it, you know? And so I love that's kind of like what jump started this idea of like, hey, there's opportunity here.
Yeah. It also is a great example that entrepreneurs overthink it. They overthink, like, you have to capture a trend and you have to do all these like analytics and research to figure out what the trends are to capture it.
Yeah.
When most of the trends are just sitting right there in your gut, like, you'll know, like, you can feel the trend, because we all grew up. Like, if you want to analyze this trend, you go back to the 90s and 2000s, right? Millennials grew up with longer shorts because the NBA, right? Like the rise of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, like everyone was wearing
the Fab Five at Michigan,
right?
The
Fab Five. Everyone was wearing longer shorts. Everyone was into that. So like everyone was insecure. And I grew up in a track family. So I grew out of the insecurity of like long shorts pretty quick, because my older brothers were wearing like, you know, basically bikini bottoms running around. And and so what happens though is this trend, people grew up with these long shorts, but once they tried mid-thigh shorts, it's like, why did I ever wear long shorts? Yeah. Like, it's so uncomfortable. Like, I hate playing sports in them. I hate running in them. Like, it's the worst.
Totally.
And nobody understood that as millennials, because everyone just grew up with long shorts. And so what Preston's saying here is he just kind of jumped into the rugby world in college. He wore shorter shorts. They're looking around and it's like, dude, there's nothing out there like this.
Yeah, you mix that with like shorter shorts was a trend in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right. And so you like mix that with this kind of like, I feel like it's a 15 to 20 year old.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like you always have this like 15 to 20 year old life cycle.
That's a perfect segue in the story to, retro. So this notion of bringing something back that we felt was just missing, right? I mean, I think we're similarly aged. So like our dad, there are so many awesome pictures of our dads on the honeymoon or whatever, like on trips back in the 80s, where they just looked awesome, right? With the shorter shorts, the longer socks, those tight, like the Nike Cortezes, like this whole
the gold chains
was just.
Dude, my dad has a picture in a raised Jeep Wrangler, like this souped up Jeep Wrangler with like a supercharger and a pink shirt and sunglasses. Like that's the stuff. That's so like our dads all have pictures like that.
Yeah. So that's a very kind of like relatable and aspirational thing that we felt was missing in, you know, in the world, in the culture, whatever. So we were just kind of like, because this was what, like 2011. So just think 2011, you just had this like global financial crisis. There was all of this stress, you know, like I couldn't find a job out of Stanford, right? And you would think, oh crap, you go to this awesome college, you can't find a job. Maybe I'm dumb.
Well, that's what happens when you graduate in urban studies, like dude. You know?
Exactly. When you choose like a major, like, underwater basket weaving or whatever the term would be. But I mean, it was hard. It was hard to find out. It was very stressful, right? And at this time, there was a lot of, what are you going to do with your life stuff? We're like leading up to it. It was just like, boom, everything's up and to the right. So there was that too. There was like this notion of stress and insecurity and weight on your shoulders and like maybe like even diminished hope in the future sort of things. Like, so there were all of these things, like the macro, the status quo, our love of retro, and then maybe like the tie to sports where we thought and felt that there was this like growing groundswell of shorter shorts, becoming a thing, being objectively better than what was currently, the leading product. So you put all that together, and that kind of led us to kind of like get the thing started. And then we just kind of started, making some product. We failed at first because we put sort of like, what was it, like $3,000 a piece in, and then the person who we gave money to make us some samples just like vanished. And so that was a good start.
Dude, we've heard that story from so many people. Like, that is not an uncommon thing, especially like, I think it's less common now as manufacturing has become a lot more accessible. But yeah, like if you were manufacturing pre 2016, you hear that story a lot.
Oh man, it's so funny. So then, we had to try again, but it was just like, that's, I mean, we didn't have money. So it was like further into the red, but I guess let's try it again. And then that worked out and made some product, made some samples, and, then got to a place where, and again, I feel old, but back in 2011, there was no Venmo. There was no like Square Cash or Apple Pay. But the Square card reader had just come out. So we could take credit cards. So we started selling in person. We started like running around San Francisco, which is where we were all based, just doing our normal weekend thing. Because a lot of, Stanford's in the Bay Area. So a lot of us went up to San Francisco. We would just like do the normal weekend thing, go to the park, throw the Frisbee, go to brunch, have a mimosa. But we had this friend group, which was like a huge core to the Chubbies culture in general, which is just like, everyone's welcome. We're all friends. We're having a great time in person. We are not standoffish, but the vibe that we all have and share is like magnetic,
Yeah.
And it's just like those special things that I think we've all seen in life where it's like, oh, either from the outside, oh man, that's awesome. Or when you're a part of it, you're just like, oh, that's the best. This is the best.
Yeah,
I love going on, whether it be like my guy trips or, name your thing.
That became, can I say like something with that, dude? Like that became a really integral part of, I believe, your guys' marketing ethos too, and your brand ethos.
100%.
Because I remember this, not that I think Chubbies came out the exact same time as, have you heard of it's more of a golf apparel brand called Travis Matthew. You heard of Travis Matthew before?
Totally. I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah. So Travis Matthew had a very similar vibe, from a big just group of guys getting together and experiencing things together. And I think if I remember what happened with Travis Matthew, I think I'm going to misstep here, but I'm just going to say it anyways. But I'm putting a precursor in there. So if anybody wants to fact check me, that's fine. But if I remember right, one of the founders' dads had money and pretty much just like bought a bus, funded everything, and just said, go out and just tour. Go to golf clubs, go play, be in our clothes, go drink, go have a good time. And they pretty much just videoed and did photography around everything that they were doing. And so at the time they had released this like new, it was very similar to you, right? Like golf, the golf world was golf polos. It was Nike. It was, Ashworth, kind of just like basic stuff. And then they start to create a little bit more, create a little bit more like flashy like party vibes of golf, which was huge. And it was the experience. And I remember, because I had started a golf brand in 2016, I remember I was like trying to with our brand and our marketing, like we have to find a way to do this. And I love that that's what you guys did with Chubbies.
Yeah.
So I think that, sorry, I keep interrupting you, but I just think there's these lessons within this founder story that like we have to call out, because that was such a massive piece of what you did to your brand. Chubbies wasn't just like, it wasn't just you identified this opportunity in the market of what people wanted, but nobody was willing to say. But you also added this aspirational piece to it where people are like, oh my gosh, they're having fun. I could see myself doing that with the boys, et cetera, et cetera. And it just made it like, it was like gasoline, dude. It was awesome to watch.
I think so. No, I appreciate that. And I wrote this post once and I don't like, it was clickbaity, but the first line was like, no MBA in their right mind would have started Chubbies. And all I mean by that is simply that, to your point, it wasn't like this super structured top-down meta-analysis of every apparel category and like the market penetration, the competitive landscape of each, it was none of that.
The TAM was XYZ.
I mean, we had to, we had to back into some of that when we started trying to figure out how to raise money, because you need a TAM number and it needs to have $1 billion behind it. But before that, it's just like, this is something we would like as humans, and it doesn't really exist. And so let's just try to make it, and let's just make some stuff for our friends. And that was the extent of, because we were still working, we were working full-time jobs. And so this was like nights and weekends. So it's just like, this would seem cool. So work with our friends. Who knows?
So so you started, everything's going good. You're selling it out of your backpacks. Essentially, it sounds like people are buying it, obviously giving you guys some like, like you said, you hadn't done any back end numbers, but you're like, people are buying it. Therefore it must be, something. What happened in the business? What was the turning point in the business where you're like, this is a business and let's do this for reals? Like, what was that moment?
Yeah, I think it was, it was starting to go online on Shopify. We did a lot of, it was effectively like a drop business, if that makes sense. So like, we didn't have persistent inventory. So we would just do pre-sales. And so we'd get a bunch of emails and we'd like orient around a date. And that then became kind of like, a very shareable thing. And then, send out the email, drop the product, it would sell out. It would sell out, even though it's a pre-sale, right? Because we didn't necessarily have the cash to create all the inventory, even though we were doing a pre-sale. Like, there are just some real constraints.
Yep. It's like Kickstarter, but
so that was a way where it was just sort of like, hey, we're bringing in cash, and seems like something. We started to get a little bit of inventory, but we also missed some pre-sale delivery dates, which was also like, oh man, that's the worst. You totally, especially with us, very seasonal. These may not have been the American flag shorts, but I think there was still something that was like around a date, that if you miss that date, the value of the short to the customer goes down. So that was also huge, where we're just like, oh, darn. But to your question, I think it was just a series of things. Like, you just start to feel more traction. But dollars wise, we, I think, had a run rate of somewhere around 2.5 million annual before we quit our jobs and started diving in full time.
Okay. So
there were just numbers there.
Yeah.
And that was something that, like, I think the big misconception about entrepreneurs, right, is that they're so risk taking. And I think Jeff Bezos has some quotes of just like, no, it's kind of like the opposite. It's just sort of like you just mitigate the hell out of risks, but the upside is so compelling that that's why you do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's not to say that we were Jeff Bezos level, but it was very much like, let's just see if this is the thing. And then we dove in.
Amazing. And so, this is 2011. When I first heard of Chubbies was probably 2017, right? 2017, 2018 is when I, as a consumer, recognized and saw Chubbies as an actual brand, So I think a lot of people would even be surprised to know that you guys started in 2011. They might see you as a 2016, 17, 18
I think
brand.
maybe like formal launch early 2012, but yeah.
And my question is, because Instagram was always so serious, right? It was like the curated shots. Men's brands were all serious. You guys started out with the fun vibe and you kept the fun vibe going. Did you ever have a conscious moment of saying, hey, this differentiates us? Or did you just keep doing what you like to do?
Good question. No, I think because at the time there were no real, copycats, which became a thing for sure. But at the beginning, it was all about let's just be the opposite of the status quo. So like fundamental differentiation, like top to bottom, how we came across in every way, product, but then also all of the marketing, all of the content, like everything we did, the photography, how we took photos, how we did photo shoots, like what our box looked like, just like every detail was just like, okay, this sucks, can be better, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I think that was sort of like the foundation of what we did. And I think one note is that that's relatively obvious to a certain extent. Like when you're starting a company, let's just be different, right? We have to differentiate. We got to bring unique value to the market.
You would think it would be more obvious than it is.
It's very true.
I think it's an obvious thought,
yeah.
But most brands, I think, quickly regress to a status quo to try to copycat, or they need like,
these guys have put so much time and effort in.
They start looking at competitors all the time. Why would we do
something different?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about this,
that's a good point.
I got to call this out because it's been brought up a couple of last podcast episodes, but one thing that we brought, and I think it was maybe you who brought this up, but every good brand finds an enemy. And if you,
for sure,
you think about that with not just like brands like a Chubbies, but even like personal brands, right? Like when you can find an enemy, that enemy can become a common enemy, right? And so I love that that's what you guys had done, to kind of like piggyback off the question you had asked Preston in the response, which is like, hey, were you meaning to do this? The question Mark asked was like, hey, were you thinking of, face or Instagram pictures were very, done up and, super fashion and super, professional. And then these guys come in and it's
totally
so different from that.
Yeah,
not to say
that
speak to that.
Not
to say that it wasn't
that.
Professional, because the content might have still been professionally produced. But yeah, I just love that. Like, so your enemy, you might not have known it, but you had this like enemy of just what the status quo was on Instagram, number one. And number two was the enemy was like the Aeropostale, Hollister, Abercrombie like vibe that everyone was loving. And that's what helps you relate so heavily because everyone identifies with an enemy. And it's the same reason I bring this up all the time. It's the reason why everybody it's the reason why Donald Trump is one of the most polarizing, most famous figures in the world, right?
100%.
Is because he has created so many enemies. And because of that, he's also created so many massive fans.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Bestie. Bestie is the first ever AI-powered post-purchase survey platform. Bestie is revolutionizing the way you understand your customers. Are you uncertain about what motivates your customers to choose your products? Unsure how customers are discovering your brand or which marketing channels are most effective in driving sales to your website? Or do you know how long it takes your customers to make a purchase decision? Look no further because Bestie is the ultimate solution for you. With Bestie's cutting-edge AI feature, you can effortlessly create comprehensive surveys in just a matter of seconds without the need for any of your valuable time. And that is not all. Bestie's automated insights will regularly provide you with actionable information week over week, giving you the tools to drive your business forward. Now with the holiday season in full swing, there is no better time to start gathering valuable customer data. Bestie is offering an exclusive 30% discount for Q4 alongside a 14-day free trial. Do not miss out on this opportunity to supercharge your business and truly get to know your customers. As e-commerce owners and agency owners ourselves, we use Bestie every single day to help us make better decisions on how we communicate, acquire, and grow our customers. Visit Bestie AI or check out apps.shopify.com/bestie today to secure your Q4 pricing. Don't wait. Start making data-driven decisions with Bestie today.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental rational, I guess, or human response, right, is to just be a people pleaser, right? To be liked, right? I mean, it's like evolutionary, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you don't want to be abandoned by your group, your tribe, or whatever.
Yep.
So it's just so kind of counterintuitive to just be like, no, bring on the haters. And because the reality is, and then to connect that to the point about enemies, like when you have an enemy, and you're obviously tactful about it to where you have some evidence that the enemy is hateable and that there are other people who share your beliefs. But when you have an enemy, it is so, it emblazons the people that are on your side, right? It deepens, right, their love for our cause,
Yep.
right? So yeah, we had a manifesto. We wrote something called the Chubbies Manifesto, and that was like right on our homepage. And we put it as a box insert in every single shipment. You know, it was just like one of these things where we just said, this is what we believe, you know, this is who we are. And a lot of it was constructed around the foil or the enemy, right? And so it was all these things that I mentioned at the beginning, but yes, so like Abercrombie was a solid. So you have like a specific brand or company, but then you also have ideals or characteristics of life. But yeah, mostly like feelings or ideas that are also, when you think about it and when you name it, that also becomes an enemy, like lack of confidence, right? Like we connected long cargo shorts to lacking confidence in showing your legs. We likened the lack of we were also like an enemy was also like work and the work week and bosses and cubicles and things like that. Like that's very relatable. Like who doesn't, you know, who's going to say, man, I love my cubicle, but being able to call it out because we were all about the weekend,
Yep.
right? That was Chubbies equals weekend. Chubbies equals the feeling you have Friday at 5 p.m. It was all oriented around that use case of, you know, taking off the pants that shackle you, right? And just throwing on a comfortable pair of shorts. And then now it's your world, right? Now no boss is setting up one-on-ones, you know, no one's telling you about TPS reports if you know about the movie Office Space, which was just amazing. Like that. So that was the whole thing. So then it's very easy to just sort of like name an enemy and talk about why it sucks. And then people are like, shit, yeah. I mean, totally. Yeah. Who's going to say they like work? No, I hate fucking work. I like barbecues with my friends, but it's essential, to your point, to have the enemy off of which you can say the thing that you hate and therefore love. Meaning It's way more powerful to have cubicle work bosses like to elicit that visceral feeling and then say, well, this is then why I like the weekend and barbecues, rather than just saying barbecues are awesome.
Right.
You know? There's just no weight to it. There's nothing around which you can rally. So anyways, it's kind of like getting into the minutia of positioning and stuff. But your point around enemy is great. Perfect. On the Instagram piece, that was exactly right. I mean, and then Rainer, very close and still close with Kevin, who created Instagram. And the whole vibe was quality images, right? I mean, it was this whole, like that was the fundamental premise of filters in the first place, because the iPhone camera at the time was crap.
Yep.
And you didn't have the bandwidth. I mean, just remember how long it took simply to upload a photo, you know, with 3G or 2G.
I was going to say, I think it was 3G.
So like that was the context. Yeah. That was the context.
For the kids out there,
so then
if
this
you know
whole
what 3G
idea was around,
is.
you probably don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you've ever just dealt with a page that loads for an hour, and that from a product perspective, that governed a ton of Instagram's value that they brought to the market, was all of this like front end client side caching that made it easier to upload photos. So that's like total aside stuff. But yeah, that was the whole thing. It was like beautification of your photos. And so our whole idea was like, no, let's embrace the thing that looks like it's real and the thing that actually looks like it's a photo that was texted to you on your favorite group thread with all of your buddies, right? That was exactly what we were trying to capture, because that was what we loved. Like yes. And magazines were still somewhat of a thing at the time, right? So you knew what those like professional ads looked like, and it was just sort of like the whatever, name your brand. But one of the epic ads that we've probably all seen, and I think it still runs, is like some cologne ad, and it's this gorgeous dude. He's super tan, dark hair. He's like leaning to his side on a boat, I don't know, like in Greece or something. And he's just got like this white Speedo on, but it's just so serious. And so anyways, that was just like what it was. Or it was just like you're standing all stiff and the lighting is perfect and whatever. And so, yeah, we were just trying to revolt against that and be more like regular people, having regular good times, and not trying to be not trying to be a company or a corporation selling goods and services to customers, but just trying to be a group of people making cool stuff for our friends.
Totally.
And, that using those words seem like obvious, but if you think about it, it's not. And it ends up meaning a lot in terms of how you operate on a day-to-day basis. If you truly, I guess, extend out what those words could mean out to the limit. And so that was, I think, really huge for helping us create community, build up a follower base, all of these sorts of things that ended up allowing us to really start to scale quickly and find like high quality reach at very low prices, just get distribution, get the word out in a very cost effective way, which allowed us to grow very quickly, very inexpensively early on.
And then I have another question for you, because at the same time, a lot of people preach vulnerability and seriousness, right? Like you have to be serious if you're in business. And I think that obviously has a place depending on your brand, but what's your advice to companies of how they should approach their personality online? Because I think there's a time to be serious, but my thing is I think companies take themselves way too serious. And people don't 100%. Think about them half as much as they think people think about them. And so you have more room to play with things. So my question for you is, what's your advice to brands about how they should approach this personality aspect online?
Yeah. The one-liner I would start with and then can dive in, but like the one-liner is like, I get it, because the assumption that I've had before is that humor equals less smart or less of a good, reputable, trustable product, service, company, or whatever. Like the assumption is, you'll make less money because you're treating it like a joke, and other people won't believe you. They won't buy your product because of that. You need to come across as smart, because if you don't, you won't be respected. So these are some of the, I think, reasonable assumptions that a human can have around this front as to why that might be potentially, because I've thought about it a little bit. I'd be curious to get your thoughts, but that's the beauty of what I think things like Shopify and other platforms that make it easier to start your own business and do it your own way, I think has brought to the world, which is a pretty tectonic shift in the last 15 years, right? Because you can do it your way. You can do it your authentic way. You can be funny and goofy. And there are people who are like, no, I resonate with that, right? Yeah. Because so much of the professional interaction that has existed up until this point is like, you're a little shit peon and you've got to manage up and manage down, and you've got to, deliver for your boss. And it's all about like working in the company and just like, maybe in 3 years, I'll get this raise. Maybe in 5 years, I'll get this position, right? Where it's just like such a lack of freedom and such a, I need to quiet myself. I need to silence myself in order to fit into the existing system or definition of success. So again, that was our enemy. That was another one of our enemies. It's just like this bullshit that exists out there. So yeah, I mean, that's so much the core of what we were all about, because when you can put out that authentic fun and passion and humor and lack of seriousness, like fundamentally, just from a human perspective, they're just such like magnetic aspirational personalities. Just like the people who are that way in your life, you generally like want to be friends with.
Yep.
And because a brand is nothing more than effectively a human turned into a product, like it's just all fundamental relationships and relationship building.
Yeah.
I mean, it totally checks out. But no, that's huge. And so then the advice is just like, be yourself. Like if you have a fun side that is you and you default to that way of being, do it.
Dude,
but
that's exactly what I was just about to say.
If you don't have it,
like,
don't force it.
With what you're saying, I think I think what's happened with the word, I've actually like learned to hate the word authenticity lately, because I think what's happened is people have redefined the word authenticity, which is serious. Be serious, be vulnerable, be, when at the end of the day, like
it takes a heavy tone, like sad.
Yeah.
Sad, serious.
It's heavy. There's a weight on it. Yeah.
Yeah. When at the end of the day, authenticity is just being yourself. And what's so funny is if you're not funny, but you think that funniness is going to sell, it's not going to sell for you. There are so many people out there who have a more serious tone that crush it because they are inspirational and they are serious. And you can just like, humans, we're smart. We feel, we hear, we listen, we see. And so we know when like somebody's trying to be funny, but they're not. We know when somebody's trying to be serious, but they aren't. And so I think that's like, to me, the lesson is just like, listen, if you are more lighthearted and you are funnier and you are different and you are loud, that is authentic, and be that. If you are more serious and you are more, your color palette just in general is neutral, and then be that, because people are going to feel that and you will connect with the other people. So I it's like,
I mean, it's just like the filter can be, I don't know, I'm just spitballing, but like, when do you get energized? What are you doing, and who you with, and what are you being when you're getting energy, right? Because like, I don't know, I'm just getting off topic, but like energy is so important, right?
Totally.
When you're building anything, right? And it's less around, I think Tony Robbins talks a bit about this, like it's less around hours in the day that you're putting in work. It's more around like managing your energy for the greatest like output and impact. So
Naval has good
back off
line
that.
about that too.
Yeah, he does. So manage your energy, but then be cognizant of what is draining and then what is energizing.
Yeah.
And like, that's a lot of learning that I had to do, because I personally went through this process of growing up, man. I was smiling 23 hours out of the day, right? I was just goofy as hell. People were like, Preston, you're weird. And I was like, fuck, I don't care. Like, this life is awesome. I'm just having a good time. I love to just make people laugh and have fun. And just like levity was my soul. Right.
Yeah.
And then as I, especially like right when I graduated, 2008, having trouble getting a job, figuring out like, who am I? What is my value? Maybe I have to be serious to be successful. Like, honestly, maybe I have to just start dressing differently, and like maybe I have to just like do this thing, play this game, and hide this part of myself. So anyways, I don't know. You say it and it really resonates, because that is exactly my journey. And that's why Chubbies was just such a godsend, such an outlet to just be who we were, because we had done the 5 years, getting shit on by our bosses and, not having control of our schedule, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just sort of like this notion of freedom to be, who we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with your tone around the word authenticity, but yeah, totally. That totally resonates.
I want to jump in and put a framework on this.
It's the why that matters. I'll just make this final point.
Yeah, go.
Is like, if you believe that like the purpose of life is to maximize your positive impact on the world, like in some form, whether it be quantity or quality or some mix of both, then the only way to do it is to be fully the thing. Like if you believe in that you're like unique and that there's like value to you as a human, then the only way to bring that value of you as a human to the world is to just like fully like rid yourself of all of the bullshit that is not you and that does not make you unique. And then just bring that you to what you're doing so that you can fully create something of value. My intense belief, like this is very tightly held, is that if you're not doing that, your impact on the world is going to be blunted. And that is so sad. Like if you just think about it existentially, like that is just such a bummer. So I don't know. I think this topic is just kind of important, where it's just kind of like, that's what gets me so excited about the opportunity to create a business, is that it provides the opportunity to just like say, F all this other stuff that didn't work for me. It works for some people. My wife, and in no way is this disparaging, but she is a killer at being in a big company and doing that whole thing. Like she's been at Facebook for like 13 years and she knows how to navigate all the things. And she's just really good at that stuff. And that's authentically who she is. I mean, I applied to work at Facebook out of college. They didn't accept me. I couldn't, there's just no way. Right. So then it's just sort of like, and because I couldn't get those jobs, right, I had such insecurity that what's wrong with me? You know, is it this side of me that is just so fun and loves to just goof off and laugh? Is that like incongruent with success in the real world?
Yeah.
And, you know, you have all of these crazy thoughts. So then that's why I get so excited about trying to support people starting something that they can own and direct and be responsible for, because I truly believe that's like the fullest expression of a human life.
I love that, man. And I want to put a framework around this. So a marketing framework, which really, you know, because marketing is just an expression of a brand. That's really all marketing is. And what we're talking about is we've kind of blended the expression of personality and how that evolves into a brand or can evolve into a brand. But the marketing principle is called tension and release, right? There's tension in life. And if you can find a way to either create that tension or tap into that tension and provide the release of that tension, right? That's the aha moment that you can give other people. And if you can give other people that moment, that's how you create that brand identity, right? It's usually around that release of attention that they're experiencing. Yours was a very personal one, right? It was like, hey, my experience as a person, I have all this tension around conformity. Like that was like one of the biggest, like you talking, you can feel it. What made the biggest tension of your life for those 5 years was this conformity, was this job, was this, I can't even really be who I want to be at work. I can't express myself in certain ways. Like, is there something wrong with me? Because I just want to have a good time. Like, I don't want to act like this all the time. I'm not a bored guy. I don't want to like sit on these rooms and like not joke. And so that tension was a huge thing. And you found the release through your company, but then you also wanted to provide that same release through your brand for other people.
100%. That was the like fundamental framework that drove everything that we did. Right. I mean, any kind of content that was, I mean, that's that fundamental premise, right? Is get out of work, the tension, and then the release. Throw on the Chubbies at Friday at 5, like that.
Yep.
That is the through line of the whole thing, right?
And then
so every piece of content we made is coming off of that tension release around work, deadlines, insecurity, seriousness, everything. So yeah, you put it perfectly.
And I wanted to also just point out comedy. The reason why comedy can work so well in marketing is because comedy and comedians are great at finding those tension points in life.
Mm-hmm. And the relatable tension points.
And that's why really all comedy is. If you look at it, yes, you have kind of the sporadic, like off the wall comedy, but a lot of the comedy out there is really around what's the tension points in life and how do you flip it on its head to provide a release of it. Mm-hmm. And that's why, and
there's
comedy is
innovation
easy to
on
do
two
that.
fronts.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's innovation on two fronts there, because then you can hear what you're saying and just be like, oh, I mean, that's like pretty obvious, but it's not, right? Because the innovation on identifying the tension and articulating it in a way, right? Because we live our lives unconscious most of the time, and we just take these tensions for granted as just like the way it is, and like the status quo, like the default. But it's truly not, right? So that's one of the amazing things that the best comics bring to this world, is calling something out, and then he calls it out, and you're like, shit, he's right. That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is stupid.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
And then being able to articulate in an interesting way why it's stupid, why it's ridiculous, giving you a particular example, and then you're like, oh, huh, I didn't think about it in that way,
Yeah.
or that was a surprising way to think about it or talk about it. So it really takes a lot of time and awareness and perception and practicing that. And some people have it, you know, just naturally, but it's way easier said than done, because there's a lot happening there to expose it and relay it, or communicate it in a way that is effective.
Well, if you want to go full circle to Seinfeld.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Exactly.
That's right.
Right, Seinfeld made his
Totally,
entire comedic career off of pointing out
That's
the
all it
small
was.
The
tensions
obvious.
in everyday
Just
life.
the show about nothing.
100%.
All right, I have
100%,
one last kind of question I want to hit on, and because I know we need to close out here, but I think this is just an interesting topic right now, and I think I know
This is a fun conversation, guys. Super fun. I don't even know if we got into any of the topics you wanted to cover.
No.
I'm sorry,
but that's
Maybe
that's
I
what
don't know, rapid fire.
that's the
whatever,
beauty of the
but,
podcast is you have some bullet points, maybe, you know, you got a little skeleton outline, and I actually think nothing's better than when you don't hit on it, because that means like we hit something that's so important for people to like really understand. And the reason why I want to frame this question, because it's part of what we've already discussed, but I'm curious on advice you have for anybody listening, which is right now we live in the pay to play model where most brands, in order to win, are spending crazy amounts of money on platforms like Facebook and Google and TikTok now, and you know, and influencer marketing, whatever. What are your thoughts for people out there who are struggling? Like, what can help them win? Like, what do these brands need to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are the mistakes they're making in this world, and what can they do to win?
Yep. Hugely important question. I'm going to just do a self plug. Feel free to edit this out, but honestly, it's impossible to talk about in whatever the 8 minutes we have. But like, I try to write about this every single day put out a post a day on LinkedIn, because this is the question that was like the $1 million or $1 billion question at Chubbies.
Yep.
So anything I write about comes from, and anything I'm going to mention right now comes from the place of I've made all of the mistakes, and then learned some stuff along the way, stumbled along. There was never an aha moment, but anything that I've figured out, or any of the advice, purely just comes from, it is so painful to do it wrong for so long, and very humbling. So let me just say that. So some advice, some things to think about. Like the biggest aha for us, or the first thing I would say is, I get it. It truly is that way, right? I mean, there are so many things in your business that drive you to feel like you have to conform, right? Do the thing that everyone's doing. Okay, put $1 in, hopefully 3.5 come out in whatever your short-term click-based attribution window is. And then that's the engine that drives your business.
I like 180 day,
right? Because
me too.
180 day view through is even better.
Oh yeah, view through. Let's go view
we'll
through.
Take view through for sure.
So that, I mean, it totally makes sense, and I've been there, and it's so this idea of, okay, this is the one path I should spend all of my money on, all of my time on, because if I get really good at this, I can build $1 billion business. That thought process makes a lot of sense, and I have been there for a long, long time. And not that I'm not there. I mean, I'm not operating anymore, but not that I got to a place where I was like, had a high horse and I was just like frowning on people who still spent money on Meta. No, still did a lot of that. So the advice is, it's okay. It's all good. It makes sense. It's use the tool for your needs. Don't let the tool use you for their needs, if that makes sense. So what does that mean? I mean, it's an amazing tool to get reach. It's an amazing tool to put content out there that feels like it's the content that your friends and you already are looking at and enjoy. However, there's the dark side, if you will, that is like the way that it reports and the definition of success. And I think that's the problem that I ran into, which is, what truly is the definition of success? Is it ROAS? Is it the revenue that I drove that is attributable based on a click to an ad that I ran over the last 7 days? Is that the definition of success? Is revenue the definition of success? I used to answer both of those questions with a resounding yes, right? Because I thought our business was going to get acquired off a revenue multiple, valued off of a revenue multiple, which was absolutely not the case when it happened. So these were all just like things I had to learn, right? So the advice is, okay, take a step back, right? Let's not lose the forest for the trees sort of thing. Let's start to understand and think about and orient around metrics that matter rather than vanity metrics. And let's start to look at the totality of our business, acknowledging that Facebook doesn't have all of the context on your business. Facebook knows the revenue Facebook drove. Facebook does not know your own and organic and earned business, which is the most important part of your business, which when that is stronger, that fuels your performance on Facebook, but Facebook still has no context on the true engine. I call it the free money machine, on the free money machine that you're trying to build in your business, because that's where the true asset value is. And I just didn't know that at the beginning. So, okay, we talked about how I get it, how it's so easy to kind of like get wrapped up in it, right? Because you get all these metrics, and then you can say, when you start to like make a little bit of money and you start to hire people, you can say, hey, your KPI is take click-through rate, increase it 15 basis points by the end of the quarter. Great. I've been a manager because I've identified a KPI and I've set a goal, and I now have a structure for how this is going to, like, I'm doing a good job as a company builder executive, right? But again, like, I was playing the wrong game. I mean, you mentioned Naval, stupid games win stupid prizes, right? That's what it was. That was exactly what it was. I was playing the stupid game of ROAS and short-term revenue, rather than playing the correct game, the infinite game, which is build up this resilient base of unpaid or earned and organic revenue that is just always there. Because that's what your brand is. Like, your brand can be all of this stuff that is branding. These are tactics. These are inputs into the financial definition of brand. LVMH, right? Growing top line, something like 28% a year with something like 20+% net margins. Like, this is Google style financial performance. But I bring it up simply because that's the financial definition of brand. They've got they spend a ton of money on marketing. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying don't spend money on marketing. I'm saying spend your money in such a way where it drives changes in people's minds, where they stop evaluating your product, where they stop making the decision to purchase your product based upon a rational analysis across all of your competitors. And when they're making a decision based upon your product features, your price, the quality of your promo, and whatever urgency you're putting in front of them, no. Do that to a certain extent, because you got to convert the folks who are ready to buy. Incrementality of that is low, but you do it to a certain extent. But the where we have to get in the big journey of Chubbies evolution was understanding the power of changing minds, so that when they think shorts, they think Chubbies. When they think swim trunks, they think Chubbies, right? And it's just because of all of the stuff that we've seared into people's minds about connecting shorts and Chubbies and building up all this love and humor and positive association, where it's the same thing like with a friend. When you're just like, if I'm going to go to a concert, I choose this friend. When I'm going to go to a baseball game, I choose this friend. Yep. It's just because you've built up those associations over time to where we can use what's called our system one thinking, right? If you're a fan of Dan Kahneman. system one versus system two. It's like system one, simple decision. That's the way we have to get through life. Let's turn the purchase decision into something that's system one. More of that happens. More people just search for your branded search, come to you directly. They purchase without needing a discount. They purchase without needing to click on an ad. You build that resilient organic base of revenue. You still do all of the direct response performance marketing stuff, but it's now you get these spikes and they're building on a growing base. And that growing base is where you get more of that profitable acquisition, where your contribution dollars and contribution margins start to go up.
Yep.
And that's when you actually start generating cash in the business. And so when you focus on contribution, you focus on building that resilient base by changing people's minds so that they're making an emotional decision rather than a rational decision. That's when you start making money as a business. Like that's when you start building something that lasts rather than, on one end of the spectrum, you have nothing against dropshippers, but you have that where there's just like, you don't put ads out, no one's coming to your site. No one's buying from you, right?
Yep.
Whereas over here, it's like, if we stopped running ads, whatever strong company, Coke stops running ads, a lot of people are still going to drink Coke, right? And, or if you talk about like, I'm listening to the Founders podcast right now, and they're talking about Hermes, which is like a $250 billion company. I had no idea they're that big because I had no idea luxury could be that big. And they just basically, like, as they increase price, demand goes up. Like, it's just wild. And there's a variety of reasons, but it's just this general idea that price doesn't enter the equation. Yeah. It's not a rational purchase. So anyways, that's like a whole bunch of stuff. And I touch on all this stuff when I try to distill it in writing, but that's the general advice, is just like, get out of these sorts of things that can be so attractive, take a step back, get an understanding of what actually matters. Contribution, a lot of your money coming from organic traffic, and build this resilient base that's always there, normally viewed as like a black box because it's like much harder to deconstruct and build, but you can. And that's how you do it. That was our shift at Chubbies. So like, you wanted to talk numbers. I think roughly, let's say the big change, and it was very gradual over half a decade, maybe like 30% of our revenue was coming through like owned and organic, unpaid, whatever you want to call it, channels in the earlier days. And that started high, but then it just slowly inched down as we got more and more reliant on, bottom funnel conversion tactics, blindly following ROAS. We no longer had the ability to raise equity. So we raised a bit of money over the course of the business. I mean, it was cool. We were growing fast. DTC was the hit thing. Then it was no longer the hit thing. Like Bonobos and Trunk Club and a variety of other brands got acquired for nice numbers. But then a couple of years later, they were completely written down. And that was like, okay, so now when you have stuff like this happen, the market for your equity, for people wanting to buy your equity, goes from 5 times revenue to 0.5 times revenue. And you're like, what have I spent the last 6 years of my life building? Yeah. The value has gone down precipitously overnight, effectively. So we had two options, run out of cash, go bankrupt, or try to right the ship. And the things I just talked about were effectively the things we stumbled upon over better part of a decade, but then ultimately got to a place where the vast majority of our new customer acquisition was coming through like owned and organic channels, like 70+%, right? Yeah. And so then that helped insulate us from the iOS 14 apocalypse, whatever you want to call it, where there were some headwinds for sure, but it didn't put us out of business. It didn't present an existential threat. Yeah. Whereas back in the day, and I'll vividly remember this, there was a time when I was like a groomsman in a wedding, getting ready, and I saw that the payment for our Facebook bill didn't go through, and so our ads were no longer serving. And I then checked my our Shopify dash, and saw that revenue was effectively nothing for that day. And that's that moment I think we've all felt to a certain extent. We're just like, I am beholden. I am beholden to another party. The success of my business is not dependent upon me. It is dependent upon this thing of which I have no control over. So you have that feeling, you're like, this cannot continue. Yeah. Getting to then a place where it's just like, okay, we still do all of that short-term stuff, of course, but we've also built up this like resilience and consistency that's the core of the asset value.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to build something that can get acquired, great. That's where the asset value is. But the additional benefit is that when you start doing that stuff, your business starts generating a lot more cash. And then to the extent you have the ability to do this, you don't have to sell to get liquid. Like the dream is, right, to just be able to swim in divvies is what I call it. Like just get those dividends as an owner in a business that generates a lot of profits.
Totally.
Like that's possible when you have a strong brand and you're not competing on a product offer urgency level. You're competing on this emotional level, right? And so that's where it all changes. That's the advice.
Love that.
Yeah, that was awesome, dude.
And
take it or leave it. Hope it's helpful.
And just a few like footnotes here for the listeners. What he's referring to type 1 and type 2 is Daniel Kahneman. So go buy the book. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. It is
Nobel Prize winner, right?
Nobel Prize winner. And if you want to, like, I don't know, more layman's version, you can go buy Switch by the Heath brothers.
Heath brothers, right?
Yeah.
Heath brothers, yeah.
Switch kind of talks about type 1. They frame it as the elephant in the rider.
Yeah.
And I love what you brought up, right? Because we've always said brand is the engine, right? Advertising is the gasoline. But if you don't have an engine with oil and it's ready and it's working, it doesn't matter if you throw gasoline in it, right? Like it's just going to burn up.
It doesn't work, yeah.
And so, and it's symbiotic
totally.
at that point. So how do people create that brand presence where it becomes an emotional response, not a transactional? Because a transactional response is the justification of an emotional decision. And if you can do that, then you're winning. Now people are justifying the reason why they need you, not necessarily you're trying to give them reasons for them to buy you.
Yeah.
Dude, one quick thing. I know we're over. One thing we had to learn about, because we did discounts, right? I mean, but it is so cancerous. And so one of the things I've been thinking about is, what if in your Shopify dashboard, if you ever ran a discount, it actually showed, I don't know, 100x of what your total discounted revenue, like the total aggregate amount of discount for a particular day, right? When you're just looking at your daily revenue, because you're going to get a revenue pop. But if you saw, and Shopify showed you like the discount, the reality of the discount view or something like that, and it was like 100x the actual amount that was discounted. Like, I don't know the math, but you just got to be able to, if you could feel the pain, the real damage that you're doing to your business by doing discounting, which again, I did a ton of it. We did a ton of it, but we didn't feel it. Like you don't feel it in the short term. You just feel the quick pop, right? So anyways, that was something that I was just sort of thinking about. But to your point, the justification, then your word of mouth becomes cancerous, which is crazy. There's cancerous word of mouth, meaning, oh, dude, cool shorts. Yeah, dude, I got them 50% off. If that's the word of mouth, that is cancer for your brand, rather than cool shorts, dude. Oh, awesome. Yeah, they're Chubbies. Great brand, super fun, amazing product. Check them out. Like, word of mouth is not the same, right? There are different kinds of word of mouth, because that person will only buy next time we have a massive
That's
sale,
a golden nugget,
and
right
probably
there.
won't buy.
That is a gem.
Probably won't buy if it's 50%. They'll probably need something better, because you have to you got to best your bestie, right? You've got to one up them. So they're only going to buy if it's like 51% off. Whereas this other person, they're like, cool. Yeah. Whenever I'm in market, I'm going to go check out Chubbies.
Yeah. Even if they're a little more expensive. Yeah.
There's some really interesting stuff there around justification.
Part 2. That'll be part 2 conversation. We'll have to have a part 2.
Let's do it. This was so fun. I completely lost track of time.
Dude.
Sorry if I was rambling.
No, this was awesome.
Really
we appreciate it. Like I said, oftentimes we don't ever script these podcasts, but oftentimes we'll try to come up with some sort of, hey, this is what Preston did. This, like, let's ask some questions here. So, and the fact that we maybe touched on like one of those things is actually really nice, because I think we went into talking authenticity, right? Like we went into the authentic piece of like what is really going to help, what helped you and what is going to help any one of these listeners. So Preston, dude, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
On the good old LinkedIn. Just search Preston Rutherford. There's a little shorts emoji in between my first and last name. And that's it. I try to kind of like write about this stuff. Like in one line, it's like, how do you generate more profit in your business? And the way we found we're able to do it is by being able to connect brand building with financial results so that you can more confidently invest in building the brand.
Perfect. Awesome, dude. We'll in the footnotes of the podcast, we'll also put like we'll put your link in there as well. So
Sweet.
Just jump in, look down, scroll down into the overview text, and we'll find you. But thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next week. Have a good one. Thank you so much for listening to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. Please go rate and subscribe the podcast, whether it's good or bad. We want to hear from you because we always want to make this podcast better. If you want to get in touch with me or give me any direct feedback, please go follow me and get in touch with me. I am at the Trevor Crump on both Instagram and TikTok. Thank you, and we will see you next week.